Welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast. I'm your host as well as CEO of MKB, Mills Bender, and we have Brandon back in the hot seat today. But I guess I should say I'm in the hot seat now. So tables have turned. He now gets to ask me questions.
Yeah.
This is typically the more, just banter type conversation. But if you want, go ahead, reintroduce yourself if this is the first episode somebody's listening to.
Yes, I'm Brandon Robertson, owner of Integrity Staffing Agency, staffing recruiting firm here locally. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what can I answer for you today?
Yeah, so curious as to when you were younger, did you know finance was the field you wanted to get into?
Not at all.
Because I didn't know what I wanted to do even in college. So,
No. Neither did I.
Yeah.
I went into UCF with a business management degree because I just didn't want to put undecided down.
Okay.
I would say I've always been good at math.
Yeah.
It's just how my brain works. But when I went to college, I'll expose how nerdy I am. I had already clubbed out of all the math. So I didn't have any math classes readily available, but because I was posed to study management, I needed to take an intro to finance class.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I realized, oh, this is kind of fun. It's like math and money had a child.
Yeah.
And then it was shortly after the time frame that I woke up and had $1.50 in my bank account and realized I was very financially illiterate.
Sure.
And so I studied finance because I wanted the skill set for myself.
Yeah.
I knew I'd have to deal with money regardless of how I made my money.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't something that I studied for a career in it. I just happened to fall in love with it along the way. Like you fell in love with helping people and working with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess in your business, what would you say? I mean, because obviously challenges pop up. It's funny because our businesses are about the same age.
Mm-hmm.
But what kind of has been your biggest challenge to growing, and like how have you overcome that?
So I think for me personally, because I'm a mom and a younger mom, I have two very young kids. I'm scaling in a very different way. So I try to keep my work hours within 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so when I want to scale and hit these lofty goals, I'm trying to fit it in fewer hours than what a counterpart might be able to afford in terms of time, right? So the struggle with that is it's been finding the right people. And so I tried scaling MKB a few years ago when we were more on the consulting and coaching side. And it was really difficult to do that because finding other people who can consult and coach and don't really have all of your personal experience, it's harder to have standardization, I would say. But as soon as we flipped the switch and focused more on the CFO side, it's been a lot easier.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I know from watching your socials, which you're so great at.
I take no credit. That's all Chloe.
Okay. Good job, Chloe. I know the goal is to become a fintech business, to grow to that. Why that? Like, why is that the goal? Why are you trying to get to that?
Sure. So there's personal and professional reasons behind it. On the professional side, having an app that can do a lot of what we manually do as CFOs would allow us to be a lot more efficient and bring on more clients, help more people with the same infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
We could also then give that software to other financial professionals like accountants, bookkeepers, other fractional CFO companies to help them with their clients too and help them be more streamlined. The end goal of it is to also allow the business owner who maybe can't afford our packages yet, but still wants that guidance to get a little bit of that help on their own. So bridging a gap in the industry that has not been fixed yet.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome.
That's the professional side of it. The personal side is my husband works for somebody else. I want him on the team because we don't want to be time restricted to his PTO. He's not as entrepreneurially minded, but as soon as we started talking about the app, he's like, oh, I want to build this.
Got his attention.
He has the skill set. He's incredibly smart and driven. And so being able to work together would be really exciting, especially because we have young kids.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a young family as well, so I totally get that. And that kind of leads to my next question. I feel like growing up, or, in the entrepreneurial world, it's like work, the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's and, all the, Andy Elliott's the new hot one. Like, never sleep, always work, forget about your family, all this stuff.
When I'm dead.
Yeah. Like, what do you say to people? Because I feel like that gets into young people's minds a lot, especially college students that see that and they go, that's how you become successful. That looks scary. Like, what do you like? How is it possible to kind of marry the concept of, hey, I want to be a good young mom and be present, but I also want to grow a really cool, long-lasting business? Like, how, I know you spoke to it a little bit, but how do you marry those two concepts?
It's not easy. It's something that I revisit almost every single day. But the first thing is I'm very rarely on social media. I post on my stories, but besides that, like, I tend not to doom scroll. Because then it gets in my head.
Sure.
So any free time I do have, I try to be intentional with how I spend that time. And so speaking of marrying the two together, I'm very strict with my calendar. I do color-coded time blocking.
I've seen it.
Oops. But what I'll do is I'll fill my calendar with the important things first, which is everything except business. And then I have my blocks for business, and then I prioritize the tasks in there. So really what I try to do is when I'm done working, especially because I work from home, I close the laptop, close the doors, I leave my office, work stays in there. I'm intentional with my kids. Somebody texts me, you're going to have to wait until the next working business day, baby. Unless you're a client or somebody that is a friend outside of work. Like, it's one of those things. But there's people who will say, I texted you last Tuesday. Yeah.
I'll get to you.
I'll get to you. It's okay. I see you.
I really respect that. It's I think we're similar in that mindset. I have 3 young kids, so I try as hard as I can to. I have an office, but when I leave work at work, and I'm at home to be my more important job, which is a father, right? So I think people knowing that, and even young people that aren't parents, it's, you work isn't life, right? No. It's not life. So you can have a life, you can do what you're passionate about and have a really cool business or cool job too. So
I think it's important when you're establishing those boundaries, you will naturally attract and find the people who have similar boundaries.
I agree. Yeah.
There's been, when we first moved back to Orlando, I was still pregnant with my first. And when I gave birth, I was still focusing more on the consulting and coaching side. And I had CFO kind of on the background that I wasn't publicizing. And I remember when my oldest was born, I couldn't find somebody I trusted enough to watch my kid.
Right.
And so the first 6 months of me getting out into the world and meeting people, guess who was coming along? Him.
Yeah.
And there was only 2 occasions that somebody had a problem with it.
Yeah.
Every other time, like, oh my God, can I hold it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, no problem. Bring them along. But the other 2 people, frankly speaking, I didn't want to do business with them anyway.
Didn't align.
Didn't align with my core values, didn't align with my personal or business mission/vision statement. And so I think it's okay to establish boundaries, and it's okay to say no. You don't have to live in the hustle and grind every single minute of your life.
When I think present parenting is cool again.
Yeah.
It's finally like the cool thing to do. So
it's trendy.
It's trendy again. So, I respect that. And I love that your business, you are trying to grow, but it's not everything. It's not the end all be all, right? Like, there's other pieces of life that are far more important than being a fractional CFO, right?
Yeah. So, I think it's the least interesting part of my life.
That's what I say about my business too. Yeah.
I just happen to do this. Yeah,
exactly. Let me see if I have any other questions.
Any other questions?
Instagram scroll. Ooh, this is a good one.
Oh God.
If you had an extra hour it might just go back to the other ones. If you had an extra hour every day in business, what would you do? So not, obviously you'd spend time with your kids, I'm sure.
I'd probably do more speaking engagements.
Yeah.
I love going on stage. You talk about you're an introvert. I'm an introvert, except for when I'm on a stage or talking with me.
Right?
Yes. No, there's just something about the transfer of knowledge.
Yeah.
And physically being able to see people have that light go off.
Yeah.
Doing a virtual workshop or a virtual speaking, that's cool. But something about being in front of an audience and I don't know. I think that's really cool.
I think it's very cool. Absolutely. All right, let's see.
These are good questions.
Biggest mistake that you now see as a blessing. So something that didn't go well that turned into.
I had a potential a few months ago to bring on a client that would have been massive, massive. I did not do my due diligence on researching what the cost of that time would have been. And so I ended up not getting it. But frankly speaking, that client would have probably bankrupted my business because of the amount of time and where I was at in terms of my company size at that point. Yeah. And so it sucked, but I learned a lot about it in terms of a proposal perspective, understanding what they really needed, and then making sure I had the infrastructure.
Did you turn it down because you figured that out?
They ghosted.
Okay. So you would have gone through with it.
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Blessing in disguise.
A huge blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. Okay. Last one, favorite book?
Oh God, don't do that. Personal or business?
Business. Yeah.
Atomic Habits.
Great book.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the few self-help books that doesn't feel too existentialist.
Well, and one that you feel like is applicable to.
Yeah.
Like you can apply the concept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming back on for part 2.
Of course. Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you guys for joining for another episode. We will catch y'all next time.